Welcome to another edition of Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network, sponsored by Bet Online. I am joined here, of course, by Super Bowl 50 champion, former Denver Bronco, Chris Harris Jr. Chris, it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Ready to talk about these old linemen, man, and the protection that our quarterbacks are going to need this year.
Yes, sir. This group mostly going to be the same. This is, of course, another roster breakdown episode. If you haven't already, go back and look at the other ones that we've done. We've covered the cornerbacks, the wide receivers, the safeties. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the O line, one of the more controversial groups in Broncos country among the fans. But for the most part, this group is going to look pretty much the same except for one key spot. We're going to talk about that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about who could step up into that role and what the depth might look like for this unit. This might be a more experienced group than we've had in the past, Chris. And I'm kind of excited to see how this group gels into camp. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the group that we've put the most resources. When I say resources, I mean money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So we got to expect this group to be the leaders of the team, right? When you have a veteran, both your tackles are vets,
Yeah.
right? You have a veteran, pretty much your guards are vets, right? Because we can put Miners up there. He was one of the top guards this season, right? And Powers has already been ranked up there, even though I think last year was kind of shaky year for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
But he's had a top 5 season
Yeah.
as a guard. So we expect this team or expect this group on the offense. This needs to be our best group.
Yeah, definitely. And with a possibly a rookie quarterback starting, that's going to be huge. We're going to break it all down here on Bleav in the Broncos. But first, we have a message from our sponsors. Bet Online is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right to all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and in boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. And Chris, where we're going to start with this roster breakdown is just taking a look at how this unit was last season. This was a unit that was pieced together, like you said, with big money. Of course, you have Lloyd Cushenberry in there, who was drafted, Miners, who was drafted, and Bowles, who's been a longtime veteran. But they bring in Ben Powers, big money contract. They bring in Mike McGlinchey, huge money contract. And both of those guys, like you pointed out, Ben Powers kind of underwhelming to begin the year. He kind of heated up towards the end of the year. He was playing a little bit better, but still had some iffy games. And Mike McGlinchey, a lot of sacks given up. That was something that we kind of expected. Russ, a lot of people could point to Russell Wilson being part of that problem, but we would be remiss to say that Mike McGlinchey didn't have a great year. He got
Yeah.
he got pushed in quite a bit, Chris. So now, Bowles still playing at a pretty decent level for his costs and his values in the final year of his contract. Miners going into the last year of his contract. He played his ass off last year, and we can only
Yeah.
expect him to continue getting better. What did you feel about the offensive line's performance last season?
Yeah. I mean, early in the season last year or before the season, I thought this was going to be our best group, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
And
did.
we just didn't gel together early at all. The run game was definitely shaky at times.
Mhm.
Just bad communication. A lot of times you can see, and we started to improve as we went through that little run. We started to improve as the season went, and that I could see that happening. Right, you bring two different pieces to an O line. You got to get that continuity. You got to get that chemistry going, and so. They didn't perform as well as I thought they would, especially at the right tackle position with Mitch.
Yeah.
Him being a veteran, you pay him that money, you really you think you're going to get like a Pro Bowl
Right.
level performance production, but he's not that guy. I don't think he was that guy in San Francisco.
Hmm.
You know, but we paid him,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that might be our overpay right there. But uh, I see Powers. I think he's going to have a great year. Right? I
Yeah.
think he's going to improve. I think he's going to be good. But the quarterback is going to hold the ball a little bit too. With Bo Nix,
Hmm.
he likes to improvise too.
Yeah.
Will I Bleav he's going to hold the ball as long as Russell? No, I don't.
No.
But there's going to be some times where Bo Nix is going to improvise.
Yeah.
If we have what's the other quarterback from the
Jarrett
Jets?
Stidham. Oh, Zach
Not
Wilson.
Stidham. Zach Wilson. If he's
Yeah.
in, he's for sure improviser. Right?
Yeah.
Stidham's going to get the ball out. You might have less sacks with Stidham. But
Yeah.
with Nix is going to improvise a little bit. So that holding the ball is not going to completely go away, right,
Hmm.
with Nix. And that's a good thing, too, because you O-linemen need to hold up a little bit longer
Yeah.
because Joe Burrow's going to imprise. Mahomes
Yeah.
is going to improvise. And
Oh,
those are
yeah.
when a lot of the big plays happen. So
Hmm.
we need Mitch to do better on that. Not on his initially first pass rush, but the second and the third moves.
Yeah.
Right, that's where he
The
has to
counter
improve
moves.
on. And I think but this group has to be play better. We have to play
Yeah.
better with this group.
Yeah. And Michael Vincey is one of those dudes that, uh, man, like sometimes watching him block is like, okay, like you've got something there. And then there's other times where it's like, oh, like, okay, he's getting like absolutely pushed in. A lot of the times, not a great anchor from him. He gets really tall a lot of times. We've seen him
Right.
get pushed around by lesser pass rushers in the past, and I really hope that the work that the offensive line coach is doing in Denver is going to help this next season. Coming in as a free agent, it's got to
Mhm.
be tough. He spent his pretty much his whole career in San Francisco up to that point. Disciple of the Shanahan system, and now you're going into a completely different system and environment. So it's got to be tough, but definitely need a better performance from him, and that's just something that has really haunted the Broncos for the last few years. The big positive I would say with Mike is that his run blocking is pretty good. Like he's a very good run blocker. And I think as the season went
Yeah.
on, they got a lot. But like him and Quinn together, man, they were putting up some great deuce blocks.
Yeah.
Really moving to the second level well. And Mike McGlinchey is pretty athletic, so I'm excited to see what he can bring into year two. But I think for me, Ben Powers and Quinn Miners are the two guys that are returning that just they have to have huge years this year. With the emphasis of getting back to the power run game, that's something that Ben Powers was really, really great at in Baltimore was that gap scheme running. They didn't do a ton of that last year with Ben Powers. They had him in a lot of zone situations. And to be frank, he looked lost. He looked lost a lot. And it was not pretty to see. So especially when you're paying somebody so much money. Chris,
It's because let me make a point on that. It's
yeah,
because
please.
the scheme fit is what the issue is, right? We have
Yeah.
Mike McGlinchey, who's playing right tackle in a zone scheme offense with the
Wide
49ers.
zone. Wide
Yeah,
zone.
where he's more moving fast to cut the DN off, or he's trying to overreach that
Mm-hmm.
DN, right? If it's run to him. And now you have a guy that's Ben Powers that wasn't in no zone scheme. That's
No.
in we're going to pound it, go forward, and try to bulldoze you scheme,
Yeah.
power run scheme, gap scheme,
Yep.
things like that. So now we have these guys that are mixers, scheme wise, fit,
Mm-hmm.
trying to gel together,
Yeah.
and that's what kind of could be an issue. And we got to find that happy medium that's going to be able to fit both their play styles.
Yeah, and historically, Sean Payton has kind of gone back and forth depending on what running groups he has. Uh,
Mhm.
those last few years in New Orleans, I mean, it was a pretty healthy balance of zone and gap. But I think it does come down to terminology. You get a guy like Powers who's coming from that Baltimore. Was it the Greg Roman offense, right? Where
Mhm.
it's going to be different verbiage and maybe different landmarks for as to what Sean Payton is asking from his offense. So I think having this off season of being able to get back into the playbook, get back into the film room, learn from your mistakes last year, and let's grow a little bit. This is going to be a different style of group. But Chris, the big missing point from this offensive line that we had last year is now the departure of Lloyd Cushenberry, the center, who got a
Yeah.
massive contract. I feel like it was pretty well deserved. He played his ass off the last couple of years. He really came around, and he deserved that contract in Tennessee. Were the Broncos going to match that contract? Absolutely not. I think that they're of the mindset where they can find a guy, or they maybe already have the guy in place to take over that role. But Chris, the center is a very important part of the offensive line. He's the one calling the protections and calling out different things that he's seeing on the defense. What would it mean for this Broncos offense to have someone maybe with little or no starting experience in
Yeah.
the NFL come in and play center for this
Yeah.
team?
Oh, it's gonna be tough because you're dealing with quarterbacks that have some experience, but not very great experience. They haven't all seen every look in the
Mm-hmm.
NFL or defensive scheme that you might see. So your protection, you might have couple errors in those things, or you might not be able to see some schemes and not make the right calls and right adjustments that
Mm-hmm.
Coach Payton is looking for. But Coach Payton, that's a good thing that you have a great offensive mind coach that's going to prepare you for these looks. So that's
Yeah.
one good thing that they have, right? Even though
Yeah.
if they might not have that much experience, they have a great coach that can help
Mm-hmm.
be the middle ground of that experience.
Yeah.
I wish I'm on the mindset that I wish we kind of change our philosophy and
Mm-hmm.
how we've done our offensive line,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would love for us to keep Lloyd and paying him instead of
Yeah.
paying the outside guys that we
Yeah.
really don't know what they're gonna bring or what they have, but we built up Lloyd and we've seen him grow and we've made him we've kind of like molded him to be the player that
Yeah.
he is, and now we let him go. So
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
But even though his price tag was so high, I wish that we could have, judged that, market that a little bit better,
Yeah.
compared to what, bringing in new guys that we don't really know what they have. But that's
Yeah.
what we did.
Yeah. And I think that I think it kind of speaks to um like kind of like how Sean Payton like built some of those teams in New Orleans with the offensive line, but he did a lot of drafting and developing guys and did a really good job. The interior offensive line for him was so important. That was such a big part of
Yeah.
their success in the run game. And I'm with you. I really wish Lloyd Cushenberry was still with Denver. I think that he played extremely well over the last 2 years. He took a ton of criticism during his first two seasons, and he really
Yeah.
he shut people up the last couple of years. The pressures were way down. He was a much better run blocker, much better caller on the offensive line. I think that losing him is going to be a big loss for
Yeah.
this offensive line group. I pray that they have a good plan in place. But it's still yet to be seen. And there's still some options out there as well, as far as like veteran free agents, because you've got a lot of, 3 out of your 4 returning offensive linemen are like veteran dudes. Bull is
Yeah.
a vet. Uh, Powers is a vet. McGlinchey is a vet. And Meinerz is approaching his 4th year in the league. Like we could say that
Yeah.
he's a veteran at this point. So and Lloyd has 4 years under him. He's still pretty young. He's still growing. He's still getting better. I get the whole price tag thing, but man, I'm with you, dude. Like that was a big loss. Um,
Oh yeah.
Chris, let's take a look at some of the new additions to this offensive line room. A couple of names here that are pretty noteworthy, and a lot of the guys that they brought in were to build up depth for this unit. They weren't really looking at other players to come in and take other spots, right?
Right.
So Matt Pert, they bring him in. He's played on a couple of teams, but he was with the Giants. Not again, like not anything to write home about. He's going to be one of those guys who can swing to right or left tackle. Calvin Throckmorton, former Oregon Duck, he was with Sean Payton in New Orleans. Started out as a tackle, moved inside, played last season with Tennessee. Again, depth piece. Frank Crum, the undrafted free agent out of Wyoming. Haven't heard a ton of great things about Frank Crum, just that he looks really inexperienced at training camp. Hopefully that improves because they gave him a ton of guaranteed money. I think the most out of their undrafted group. Nick Gargiulo, the 7th-round pick out of South Carolina. This was a dude that he is strictly a development dude. Played a ton of center snaps. I think he was at Yale. He played at Yale and then finished out at South Carolina as a guard. He's a monster. This dude, he's huge. And then they brought in Sam Mustipher. We talked about him before on the show.
Yeah.
He's played in a couple spots. Not a ton of starting experience. More of like an interior center type guy, but not really anything to write home about. So, Chris, out of these new additions, this is all depth, right?
Yeah.
Out of these guys, who do you think are like the two that stand out the most?
Well, man, when you look at the size, you think you're hoping that a guy like Matt Preet can,
Matt Pert.
show up. Pert, can show up. But the other kid, Frank Crum, is just a freak size, right?
Oh man,
6'7", 315. He's probably about 320 now. Once you get that league body, So he's a huge project, right?
Yeah.
So if they can coach him right, get his fundamentals right, because they have to be looking to develop somebody to be able to replace Bowles soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's got to be on their mind.
You never know, because they might. You never know. They could. I don't know how many. He probably has 3 years guaranteed, so he probably has 2 more years. Bowles, we know Bowles is a free agent, right? Next year, and he'll be 32 or 33. Linemen can play for wider. They can play for. They can play longer. So I won't say that he's old as a tackle yet, but he's getting there. But we don't have anybody that. We gotta start developing these young guys, right? And building these guys up because the old offensive line and the whole totality in the NFL is in dire trouble, right? It's very bad. We have our elite guys, guys. Was it Sewell from Detroit, Tunzel, Trent Williams? After those, like the elite guys, it's like a major drop off. Yeah. Right. Major drop off. I think O-line is the worst position in the NFL right now. Right. So we got to figure out how to develop these guys and improve these guys, because we got to see, Khalil Mack, Bosa, Wilkins, Crosby, Chris Jones. Right. So we gotta develop these O-linemen. Hopefully one of these kids, one of these undrafted guys could be a steal. Maybe it could be Nick. Because how do you say his last name?
Gargiulo.
Gargiulo. Yeah, Gargiulo, right? He's massive too.
He's a
right, 6'5", 300
big.
plus O lineman. Right. So we see that Coach Payton is bringing in guys that are massive maulers. Right. So we can get their technique down and get their fundamentals straight. Hopefully these guys can improve and be able to be starters one day.
Man, I'm sitting here looking at Garrett Bowles, year over year, and this dude got so much better from rookie year to end of his first contract. That last year of his initial 4 years stretch, 13 pressures allowed. And then last season, 32 pressures allowed, 27 hurries. Just, and to be frank, like Garrett Bowles played well last season. That's the thing is
Yeah.
if you watch that tape, he's playing pretty well. He's playing pretty damn good in pass pro, but just other factors, man. And I agree with you. I think they need to that plan has to be in place because they can't really afford, especially if Nix is your long-term solution, which who knows. But if he is your long-term solution, you have to protect him. You have to. You can't like bank on, yeah, we'll just get a left tackle. Like we'll get a franchise left tackle in the next draft class. That's not a guarantee. So you got to shore it up somehow, some way, whether it's in-house or going after a free agent. Chris, let's look at the returning players for this Broncos offensive line room. Of course, Bowles, Powers, Miners, McGlinchey, they're all returning. Luke Wattenberg, the backup center / guard, he will be returning. Alex Forsyth, he's going to get a chance to earn that starting center spot. Kind of redshirted last season. He's a former teammate of Bo Nix, so something to keep in mind. Demontre Jacobs, Will Sherman, both practice squad guys, they're going to be returning. And Alex Palczewski, I believe he was an undrafted free agent, who they brought in last year. They really, really liked him. That's another guy to watch out for as a like Mike McGlinchey replacement here in like a season or two. So, Chris, Lloyd Cushenberry gone. This is the big question. From everything that we have heard and read, we know that there's going to be a competition during training camp for the starting center spot. It's going to be between Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsyth, and probably Sam Mustipher. Of just those three options, who would you say, like, who would you pin if week 1 was tomorrow? Who are you pinning as your starting center for the Denver Broncos?
I haven't seen Alex Forsyth play. Right. So we're going off of not seeing anybody play, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's fair.
And Mustipher, I don't think has been very well in the league. And Luke Wattenberger, Luke Wattenberg, he didn't start out good. No, I have seen
Wattenberger. Oh yeah,
Wattenberger. But Luke has been. He started out very bad. Right, very bad.
Understatement.
Hopefully he's improved. I think he did improve.
Yeah.
Last year he played just a little bit, I think, but he would be the guy that I have to go with. Those three have not seen Alex Forsyth play yet, but I'm hoping Alex Forsyth is the guy because he's had experience with Bo Nix. He seems like the guy that they're raving about. That we kind of only reason why we got him late was because he was having some injuries or he was going through some things in the draft process, right, and just fell to us. So it could be a steal. So hopefully we want him to be the guy. I think Luke should be the guy that's competing with him, right, at that position, and trying to be able to compete to get that spot because they're both draft guys, right? So we want to see. That's probably the real competition out of those two guys. Just because I don't think they see anything in Mustipher, right? I think he's like the vet guy that they picked up, just a safety valve just in case. But he hasn't really played well in his career.
Yeah, looking back at the 2022 NCAA season when Alex Forsyth's last year playing at Oregon, among all centers in that class, he was ranked 4th. He had the 4th best pass block grade of all the centers in NCAA, a 99.9% efficiency rating for pass blocking. So he can play a little bit. It's just about how far he's come along in that year of redshirting. Everything that we know about Alex Forsyth is that he's a very high IQ, high football IQ guy. He's very smart. understands the blocking calls very well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they divvy up these snaps going into training camp. Maybe we see Wattenberg more as a guard. He played the majority of his snaps at guard. The only memory that I have, like the sticking memory that I have of Luke Wattenberg, is when he first came in and they were playing the Chiefs, and Chris Jones just absolutely obliterated him, like 3 straight snaps in a row. And I was like, why did we take out Natani Muti and put this guy in? Like it was just absolutely abhorrent. So that's going to be something to watch, Chris.
And that's hard to start with, man. They put him in the
They
put him in the fire,
fire.
and like just blew the kid's confidence with Chris Jones out the gate. And now, he improved last year. Let's stick with that. He improved, he got better. So hopefully he's taking that next step to try to compete for the starting spot.
Now we got to see. Yeah, we got to see it compile. Like, are you going to compete for the center job, or are you going to try to compete with Calvin Throckmorton to back up Quinn Miners? Like, which one is it going to be? He's got good size. He's got, decent enough mobility, but when it comes to like his pass sets, it's very sloppy. And it's just like they need more trust. So especially when we're talking about that center position, and we talked about how important Lloyd Cushenberry's progress was in his development and becoming a starting center in the NFL. Does Luke Wattenberg have that in him? I don't know. It's going to be really tough. But Chris, there are some free agent centers out there. We did mention that at the beginning of the show. There are some free agent centers out there. And one of the names that I saw come up was Connor Williams, former Dallas Cowboy, spent the last couple of years with the Miami Dolphins. He's coming off of a season-ending injury last season, but he's healthy. He's ready to go. He's got a few offers. Should Denver be in the running for Connor Williams to bring him in to finalize their veteran offensive line piece?
Depends on what type of deal he's going to get.
Yeah.
Depends on if teams are giving him a 1-year deal or 3-year deal. If he's getting 1-year deal action, of course, definitely they need to be in the play for him for sure. But, it's hard giving him a 2-year, 3-year deal when, we're going to have to pay Quinn pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Right? And we're going to have to make a decision on Bowles. So if we don't keep Quinn Miners, I don't know what I'm going to be so mad. So I don't want to do anything that's going to affect him and the future, in the future of what we're going to have to pay him. But if we can get him for a 1-year deal, that would be great.
Yeah.
Right? 1-year deal, come and show us what you can do. And you got experience. Oh, man, that would be a nice pickup.
Yeah. Connor Williams, one of the highest graded run blocking centers in the league a couple of years ago, allowed 15 pressures for the Miami Dolphins, which was actually tied with his replacement in Dallas, Tyler Biadasz. This is a guy who could come in and help boost up that run game that Sean Payton was talking about. I think, watching Forsyth at Oregon, I think he's got a lot of potential in the run game as well. But I think for me, I'd feel a little more comfortable if they went with that veteran route. But yeah, you bring up a great point. Is this going to hinder us, re-signing somebody? I hope it would be for a 1-year deal. But, we'll see. So, Chris, before we get out of here, we're going to take – that's not it. We're going to take a look at the potential starting offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos. Bowles, Powers on the left side at tackle and guard. Miners and McGlinchey on the right side at guard and tackle. Maybe Alex Forsyth. Last year, they kept 9 offensive linemen on the roster. So that's kind of what we've been going by with all of these roster breakdowns, is how many they've been keeping historically. So I have in the rotation, Gargiulo, Throckmorton, Palczewski, and Pert. This gives them enough flexibility. Gargiulo can play a little bit of center. Throckmorton can play guard, maybe even swing out to tackle sometimes. Palczewski can play left or right. Pert can play left or right and inside. I think that this is one of those areas where they have enough depth, and they have enough veteran depth with Pert and Throckmorton that they feel good about the development of guys like Gargiulo and Palczewski, and then keep Crum, Sherman, and Jacobs on the practice squad as potential call-ups. What do you think about this potential offensive line and the depth chart?
Is Quinn Bailey still on the team, right?
He is. He is. Yeah, I think I forgot to
Well,
put
they
him
kind
down.
of like him as a swing, and they like him. He can
Yeah,
play guard too, so
yeah.
I would put him on there. Seeing I had him keeping 9 or 10 O
Hmm.
linemen, so that's about right. But you had Quinn Bailey on there. I think
Yeah.
that was more realistic.
So
With
maybe Quinn Bailey instead of Pert.
yeah,
Yeah,
just because
I
he
can
has
agree with
more
that.
experience and he's I wouldn't say he's played particular lights out, but he's played,
Yeah,
so and
he's
he
been
has
that extra O lineman too in a lot of
yeah,
those heavy sets.
he's that extra, the 11T guy, the 12T
Yeah.
guy. You
Hey,
want to
there
bring
you
the
go.
extra guy in.
Yeah.
And so I see him still. They like his development, right? He's probably one of our more athletic O linemen,
Yeah.
right? So you got to kind of you can't just let those guys go. You got to kind of
No. No.
continue to kind of perfect their technique,
Yeah.
right? And because I mean, the O line and we got to develop these kids better, especially from a young age.
Hmm.
It's not very. They're not very good right now.
Yeah.
So that's one position that we need some overall improvement, man. And,
Hmm.
and from little league all the way up, man, is the O line play for sure.
Needs to get better. We have talked about that numerous times, but hopefully this unit will be complete as we head into training camp. I'm very excited to see what they can do and very excited to see all those little tidbits. We will be back next week with another episode, another roster breakdown. Next time, we will be going over the linebackers of this team. Chris, another kind of controversial group, but we'll
Yep.
talk about them on the next episode of Bleav in the Broncos, sponsored by Bet Online on the Bleav Network. Make sure that you follow Chris and I on Twitter at Chris Harris Jr., at Patrick Chiotti. Make sure you follow at Bleav Network as well. Make sure you subscribe to this show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And don't forget to head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. Until next time, Broncos country, we'll see you.